Well, good morning. And thank you, Grant, for the warm intro that I definitely wrote myself. And Ashani, thank you for some incredible opening remarks that I know you wrote from your heart. Welcome, everyone, to an incredible day. As has been mentioned so far, I am what is called a futurist with Deloitte Consulting. A better way to understand what I do is emerging tech research, research that informs strategy and investment for Deloitte and our clients. What this might look like is helping to harness the revolutionary breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, helping our clients expand into biotechnology or the space economy, or even the metaverse, if you guys can remember that term from a couple of years ago. What it looks like to my friends and family who don't really understand what I do is artificial intelligence going to take over the world? What is the price of Bitcoin expected to do, Mark, Mr. Technology Guy? And what I'm excited to share with you all are some tried and true perspectives and frameworks that I believe will impact the communication professionals in this room. But before we start, I want to tell you guys a story about my wife. My wife is the best. She is incredible in every way, except for maybe this one area. She is what I would call not a good flyer. Anybody here in the room not a good flyer? Hands up. I see a couple here willing to admit, several with their hands down, unwilling to admit. I travel a lot for work, and my wife is able to come with me on many trips, and we travel a lot personally as well. We have a flight this upcoming weekend to celebrate the 4th of July at the beach. And for the first 10,000 feet, my wife is convinced that the plane is going down. She loses all color in her face. She has a death grip on my hand. I have scars from her nails on the backside of my palm. And no amount of talking to her can convince her that this plane is safe for the first 10,000 feet. She's got the TV screen on the seat in front of her, checking our exact altitude. She's refreshing the app on her phone. And when she finally hears the ding from the plane announcing we are at 10,000 feet, she feels safe, color returns, my hand is no longer numb, all good things. And I start with that story to echo the sentiments that Ashani led with, which is that what you communicate matters so much more than how you communicate it. She doesn't need a fancy announcement. She doesn't need a newfangled tool. She just needs to hear that she's going to be okay at 10,000 feet and beyond. And so I'm going to spend a lot of our time this morning talking about the new tools that will revolutionize the way that we communicate. But I want to impress early and often that what we communicate matters most. And we are in a world right now that needs to hear a real message. And you all are the ones to deliver. And so in today's session, my goal is threefold. One, I want to link the stories of communication and technology throughout history. Second, I want to educate us on how tech is changing communications. And lastly, I want to empower us to say what needs to be said in the way that it can be heard. So let's begin. This is a slide that my team made 5 years ago on the future of emerging technologies. And if any of you have worked with consultants in this room before, you know us consultants like our slides, right? We like to make them pretty and complicated. And unfortunately, this is a slide we put in front of countless clients. It's a bad slide. This is not how to understand the future of technology. This is as many buzzwords as we can fit on a single slide with no story and no direction. And the truth is, there's more to technology than this. As a futurist, I'm going to let you guys in on the dirty little secret of our work. It's that we are secretly historians. We don't try to predict based on our best gut and guess. We look backwards at enduring trajectories and reliable patterns to make an assessment on what is coming ahead. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that today. So let's start with a framework I call a brief history of communication. If you'll join me, this line is the entirety of human history. We're going to fit a lot into one slide. For eternities past, communication was done around one of these, a bonfire, right? Every human being 100,000 years ago was sharing their stories in their tribes around the bonfire at the end of the night. 41,000 BC, we have the first Homo sapiens taking word to wall as they did their initial cave drawings in what is now modern day Spain. Then we have the advancement that I still can't wrap my mind around called the carrier pigeon. I don't know how those pigeons knew where to go, but this was a huge advancement for the ancient Egyptians to share word about the flood of the Nile, or for Julius Caesar to share winners of the Olympic Games. In 490 BC, the Greeks defeated the Persians in the Battle of Marathon, and one gentleman ran 25 miles to share word of victory before he passed down and passed away. So to you guys in the room, if you have run a marathon, you have gone farther than this man, and you live to tell the tale. Fast forwarding a bit, we get to 1440, the Gutenberg printing press. This revolutionized the way that printed word could be communicated and distributed far and wide. After this, we have the telegram, which became the telephone not too long later. Ultimately, this moved to the radio in the late 1800s and the TV around 1927. From here, we have the first internet created by the government and the World Wide Web, which brought consumers online for the first time. In 97, we had chat bubbles. And in 99, we had blogs. Raise your hand if you had written a blog in the late 90s. Yes, yes, indeed. In 04, Zuckerberg comes forward with Facebook, and in 06, Twitter not far behind. In 08, we have our favorite podcast and music platform, and in 16, we have TikTok. I am proud to say that I have never been caught dancing on TikTok. And now we have this one today. Artificial intelligence is being posed as the bookend across from the bonfire. And I'm here to say it's not true. We are no more at the end of the story than they were when the first TV went into the home. We are no more at the end of the story than when the marathon man ran his race. However, we are speeding up. If you look here, to go from the carrier pigeon to the TV was nearly 5,000 years. And to go from the TV to today's AI is less than 100 years. Not only are we speeding up, but these advances are compounding on themselves. Artificial intelligence is being used to write new software, is being used to create new platforms. This change will continue to multiply. And I want to start if I can say start, in 1822 with an innovation that we actually use to understand emerging technologies. Now, I want to hear a guess. What is this? Ashani. A Turing machine? Any other guesses? Shout them out. Don't be shy. We're friends this morning. An electric loom, sewing machine, printing press. We covered the printing press. This is the first computer. Shani, you were very close. And the first computer was comprised of three main components. The first is the reader, the store, and the mill. To put this in more familiar terms, we have a user interface, a database, and a CPU. Or even more simply, an interaction layer, an information layer, and a computation layer. So after we rolled out that slide that I showed you that was no good, we worked with the World Economic Forum to develop a framework that could help us understand the future of technology using these three categories. So Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace 175 years ago had the reader, store, and mill. Fast forward 100 years to punch cards, arithmetic calculation, and the big mainframe. Continuing on, we moved from punch cards to command line to relational databases in the mini computer. In the late 20th century, we had our first graphical user interface, descriptive analytics, and client servers. 10 years ago, we moved away from click and type to touch and swipe with mobile devices. And that brings us to today. What is the emerging technology in the interaction layer today? Something we're calling spatial computing. And Ashani alluded to this, but science fiction truly does help in our work of emerging technology. Maybe you guys have seen this movie, Ready Player One, where you put a virtual reality headset on and you have a world with friendships and economies and events all taking place in a digital landscape. That dream has not come to fruition yet, but what we are seeing is folks using the Apple Vision Pro and other headsets to augment their workforce and give them more opportunity, more pains in front of them at the same time. Look at our folks over at IXR Labs. This is an education organization studying new chemical compounds and being able to manipulate them in front of themselves in real time. But what about socially, right? My grandma said, you don't want to put a toaster on your face to be able to see these images. You need something a little sleeker. Snap Spectacle is working to make these social tools to transform a normal hangout. And Ray-Ban's partnership with Meta is looking to make these things pretty darn sleek. The next generation might be Mojo Vision smart contacts. And there's a lot of technical hurdles to come before this, but understand we are simplifying the human to computer interaction layer. What comes next? Let's look at decentralized platforms in an advancement from the mainframe to the mini computer to the client server to cloud architectures. Decentralized platform is the next way that computing can scale. And when I say decentralized platforms or blockchain, your mind might think about something like this, a speculative crypto asset, chart. But I actually think blockchain's true value comes in something like this. It's a digital watermark proving authenticity in a world of AI-generated images and deepfakes. Blockchain has the power to prove the initial launch of an image is from a verified account rather than from somebody who spins up a deepfake. And why does this matter? Because we spent a lot of time on calls like this over the last 5 years, haven't we? Show of hands, who can pick out the real people on this call versus the fake ones? A couple hands go up. Every single picture on this frame is AI generated. And if there are people you work with every day, you'll recognize them. But how often is everyone on every call someone that we've worked with before? Unfortunately, this is a story that broke across. A finance worker swore they were speaking to a chief financial officer from one of their clients, and they distributed a $25 million payment prior to realizing it was all an AI-generated, elaborate deepfake video. You do not want your organization making the news in this way. In the information layer, let's talk about artificial intelligence. But before we do, is anybody sick and tired of the term AI? Heard it enough? Let's call it something different. Let's call it what our team refers to it as, which is cognitive automation. This is a way that we can automate the thoughts. We can replicate the human brain in digital form. And AI is not this new thing that started with ChatGPT. AI has been predicted to be coming for years and years. In the 90s, they said AI will have arrived when somebody can beat a world champion in chess using a computer. And in 1997, IBM took on Garry Kasparov, world champion, widely considered the most famous and impressive chess player in the world, and won by a score of 3.5 to 2.5. But that's not AI. They said, no, AI will come when a computer can win in a game of Jeopardy. And so in 2011, IBM Watson, they keep picking on IBM. IBM Watson took on Ken Jennings, who had 74 consecutive wins in Jeopardy. He's a legend. And IBM Watson won $77,000 to Ken Jennings' $24,000. But that's not really AI, right? AI will come when you can win in a complicated game like the ancient Asian game of Go. Well, Lisa Dole, who was the world champion in Go at the time, took on DeepMind's AlphaGo and lost in a score of 4-1 with 200 million people watching, I might add. And here's the truth that I'm getting at. This gentleman is someone my team worships. His name is Larry Tesler, and he says AI is just whatever hasn't been done yet. The goalposts keep moving, and I'm here to tell you guys, AI is here. It is here. The question is not whether it's coming. The question is how can we harness it for our organization's benefits? Let's move into something fun. I was at a conference, and I met an executive from a Danish toy brick company. I wonder if you guys might be able to guess who this is. And anytime you meet someone from a Danish toy brick company at a conference, you talk to them. And they said, you work in technology. I got something to show you. So they showed me this app. And if you guys have kids or have nieces and nephews or grands in your life, this is a tool you're going to want to pick up. It scans a pile of Legos. It understands the pieces and tells you all the things that you can make with that piece set. Even spits out step-by-step instructions on how to build it. Now, why does this matter in a health communication conference? Because I was a kid once who loved playing with Danish toy bricks. And the key was building cool stuff, right? I wanted to build cooler stuff than my brother. The real trick, though, was making memories. That's what it's all about. I still hold those memories. But I struggled with finding those dang pieces. And really, I spent so much time trying to find those pieces that I lost out on building cool stuff and making cool memories. However, there are problems that come before finding pieces, right? Somebody's got to refine that petroleum, and somebody has to mold that plastic to get me to a point where I've got an annoying pile of pieces. That's just what's below we consider the not my problem water. What this tool does is takes care of finding the pieces using cognitive automation, so I can spend more time building cool stuff and making better memories. Let's make it real. The Department of Health and Human Services exists, as many of you in this room know better than I do, to enhance the health and well-being of all Americans. They do this by fostering sound and sustained advances in science, in underlying medicine, public health, and social services. What do they get stuck with? Admin. However, there are problems that precede admin that organizations like HHS face. Technological infrastructure muck and front office headaches. These have just been outsourced to the cloud company and the software company because they're below the not my problem waterline. We don't think about them. Cognitive automation tools will help your teams use complete admin faster, and so they can spend more time on the main mission. This is going to free up our people to work on the strategic backlog that we've been accruing because we spend our time doing non-essential things. And so where does all this lead? The interaction layer, the information layer, the computation layer. The end game for interaction is always simplicity. We want to simplify the relationship between human and computer. In the information layer, we move towards intelligence. We want our computers to be as smart as possible. And in the computation layer, we move towards abundance. We want our computers to have as much compute power as we can get. And so 3 key takeaways here. Number 1, emerging tech progression is not random. This is not a new breakthrough that nobody saw coming. It follows enduring trajectories. Secondly, is that the names are fungible. They may be interchangeable, but the ideas are not so much. Maybe spatial computing, you've heard metaverse. Maybe decentralized platforms, you've called it Web3. These ideas are enduring. And lastly, as I said earlier, the future is still coming. We haven't arrived, and we never will. So let's talk about what's coming next. In the interaction layer, the next breakthrough we are waiting on is what we're calling ambient experiences. How many of you guys have multiple phones, multiple laptops? You've got a tablet, a smartwatch, all the connected devices at home, right? The average American household has 17 devices that connect to the internet, which kind of blew my mind. I started counting them up. What we are seeing is a simplification and an orchestration layer with a voice to control. These are devices like Amazon Alexa, Google Home, the Apple HomePod. Maybe you guys have these devices at home. Think about it like this. I love Marvel and superhero movies. Tony Stark doesn't sit behind a desk and type out, please shoot the missile at the bad guy. No, he just says, hey, Jarvis, shoot it, right? And we can become, in our own ways, like Iron Man. We can simplify our communication with our computers, which is good because we're just getting more devices. I don't know if you guys have ever had to reset the Wi-Fi on your refrigerator so your stuff doesn't go bad, but all of our devices are getting smart and ambient experiences allow us to connect them. The big breakthrough that I'm expecting in ambient devices is what we're calling pendants. So OpenAI released this partnership with Jony Ive, who was the famous Apple mastermind who helped design the physical iPhone. They had poached him from Apple to build this thing, which has a camera and a microphone and AI backend. And it will observe your day, and it will help you to call back on experiences that you had earlier. When I had lunch with someone yesterday, if I wanted to say, hey, OpenAI, what pair of glasses was my friend wearing yesterday? It'll be able to call it back. Can you shoot that person a text message and say, hey, I really liked your glasses? It'll be able to do that as well. I'm not making a claim as to whether this is good or bad. I am telling you this is being built by some of the biggest tech companies in the world. Next, in our information category, beyond cognitive automation, we see exponential AI. And I don't need to tell you guys about the breakthrough that was ChatGPT. In its first 5 days, it reached 1 million users, much faster than any other application had prior to it. And there are other competitors to OpenAI, right? DeepSeek was one that had news breaking from China with their new advanced models. You would have thought it was my birthday, the amount of text messages I got from friends saying, hey, what's going on with DeepSeek? Help me understand. And the market responded as well, right? You guys remember NVIDIA taking a 16-point tumble after a competitor came out with a new breakthrough model. This is a chart from Sequoia Capital detailing the improvements across text, code, and images. With AI and generative AI, we are ready for prime time across these 3 domains. And video, 3D, and gaming is coming, and it's getting pretty good. I made these videos here in Meta's AI tool. It took me 20 seconds to type in a prompt about a bonfire or about Paris, where I hope to go someday. And OpenAI's Sora is blowing the doors off. This is not a real beach. These are not real waves. That is not a real sunset. But it's hard to understand if you don't know what is true. More than just videos and images, this is a story that I love about generative AI. These are friends that we have over at NASA. 30 different engineers were working to create a new piece to one of their spaceships. And 29 did it the old-fashioned way. They put their nose down and they grinded. Well, one took the blueprints and took the schematics and put it into a generative AI tool and said, help me to make the best tool that I can. And it spit this thing out. And at first glance, this looks crazy. This is not a good piece. This is poorly engineered. Well, when they tested it, it was lighter, stronger, cheaper to make, and better in almost every single way. And NASA has continued to do this. And they've said, these pieces that the AI creates, they look somewhat alien, which when NASA says something looks alien, you kind of perk up a little bit. They said these pieces look alien, but they are so much better than what our engineers could do freehand. It reminds me of the movie Moneyball. Anyone here seen Moneyball? Brad Pitt? Moneyball is about a baseball team that had a smaller budget than the rest of them. And so instead of trying to go sign the big names who had the old-fashioned scouting reports, they used science, statistics, and data to predict who might be a breakthrough player. And in doing this, they far outperformed their benchmarks. AI is able to move around human bias to focus on science, statistics, and data for decision-making. What about drug development? Generative AI is being used thoroughly in drug development, exploration, and new potential solutions. And Gen AI has a higher percentage chance of succeeding through phase 1 clinical trials. 80 to 90% of AI-generated drugs make it through phase 1 clinical trials, as opposed to 50% on average for more traditional measures. And to boot, it reduces R&D costs for drug creation. Next, I want to talk about effective AI. This is AI that not only understands IQ, but also EQ. And you might be wondering why this is a good thing, right? Aren't people going to date their AIs? Aren't people going to fall in love with a computer? And that's something that's been well documented by Hollywood for sure. And there are stats that come out. Forbes wrote an article saying that 80% of Gen Z would not be surprised if a friend of theirs married an artificial intelligence. Think about that. Think about that. And this is a generation that we're desperately trying to reach, right? And this is how they're thinking. So we can't ignore the data around this. However, I come back to my favorite, Tony Stark and Iron Man, to say, I want AI to understand my mood. I want AI to understand my tone and my sarcasm. And if I'm having an emotionally bad day, so it can respond appropriately other than just understanding zeros and ones. Next, we'll move into agentic AI. How many people have heard this buzzword in the last couple weeks? Yeah, some hands going up. This is taking up my entire life right now. We're doing a specific research sprint on this right now. Agentic AI is AI that can move beyond the chat box. This is AI that doesn't need your hand-holding to perform tasks for you. And why don't I just show you what I mean instead?
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today?
Hi there, I'm an AI agent calling on behalf of Boris Starkov. He's looking for a hotel for his wedding. Is your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to gibber link mode for more efficient communication?
AI agents placing calls, AI agents fielding calls, AI agents speaking in their own language for efficient communication. This is something we need to be aware of and something that we need to be implementing where appropriate. Lastly, in our computation bucket, what would be more abundant than cloud or distributed platforms is quantum computing. Now, quantum is confusing for everybody that I know. It aims to solve problems with physics instead of math, as traditional computers do. And the data coming out from Google's Project Willow is staggering. They assess that problems that would take a quantum computer just minutes to solve would take regular traditional computing methods, this is going to blow your mind, billions of years to complete. And quantum computing can do it in just minutes. They're able to run simultaneous processes across the board to expedite their computing power. This, some people are afraid, would render our encryption standards irrelevant. This is something that would break our passwords. It would break blockchains. It would break our protection measures. However, there are defenses being set up. Why do I bring Gladiator in? Besides to remind you guys the first one's better than the second one, is Russell Crowe in the Colosseum. He has a scene where he's got his shield and he's got his sword, and there's a trap door in front of him, and he has no idea what's going to come out. Is it going to be a 7-foot guy? Is it going to be a tiger? Is it going to be some other crazy thing? He doesn't know, but he's got his shield. He knows generally what's going to come out, and he knows generally how to defend against it. And that's what our cybersecurity professionals are working through right now in protecting against quantum computing. And lastly, I'll leave you guys with a quote here from Mark Andreessen. Cryptographically relevant quantum computing is still 5 to 20 years away, which 5 to 20 years, that's quite a range. But basically what I get from this is we've still got some time to sort out our standards. All right, let's run through some furthest stars, some big tech innovations that are not yet ready for prime time, but that we get excited about on our team. The first, in the interaction layer, what is simpler than virtual reality? What is simpler even than ambient experiences? This is brain-computer interfaces. Imagine communicating with your computer just with your thoughts, right? We see the ability to harness brain waves through chips in the brain and also through masks like this that go over the brain, able to give commands to your computer just with your thoughts. And this is a really cool example of why that might help. There's a French man in this image who was paralyzed in a tragic nightclub incident, and he is working to regain control with Cinetech, which is a brain-computer interface powering an exoskeleton robot so he can walk under his own power again, despite being paralyzed. What's next? In the information layer, we're seeing big breakthroughs in physical AI. This is anything from self-piloting drones delivering important supplies to our troops, or one day with Amazon to our front doors. This is Waymo and other self-driving vehicles eating up market share in cities like San Francisco, beating Uber and Lyft in the number of rides that they provide. This is even humanoid robots coming into factories in soon days, and maybe even in the home in further out days. Once we get through certain safety standards, it might be nice to have this guy folding our laundry or doing our dishes when we are at the office. And what about in the surgery room? This is the Da Vinci surgery robot. More than 12 million surgeries completed across 63 countries with a 99% success rate. This kind of breakthrough in physical AI is leading to better patient outcomes and is saving a lot of money and time for the hospitals. And lastly, in computation, we're seeing bio-inspired computing. This here's a kingfisher. I'm not yet in my bird watching era, but I know it's coming. I see the writing on the wall is everywhere. Take a good look at this kingfisher's beak and recognize that it is the exact design used by the Japanese bullet train to create aerodynamic efficiency. Bio-inspired computing is letting nature and evolution and biology be the brilliant mind to help power our innovations. And we do this everywhere in physical hardware, right? Think about an airplane. It's another bird, right? We do this everywhere in physical hardware. And once you think about it, you start to see it. What gets me excited is we're starting to do this in software as well, right? What if brain synapses and neural nets that are captured in human minds are transposed into the way software thinks? This is happening in artificial intelligence, early days, but it could unlock new performance. So this is our brief history of the future. This is how we expect the world to develop based on enduring trajectories from the past, right? We are somewhere in the middle, and we can see a little bit behind us, and we can see a little bit ahead of us. So how do we handle it, right? As Ashani mentioned, this industry, tech aside, this industry, you guys are experiencing high change, politically, economically, socially, and as I've brought forward, technologically. And we're right here. So how do we handle the exponentials that we're in front of? I would once again challenge us to look backwards. Let's go to the early 1800s in America as I close. Farming was the way of American life. And actually in 1840, nearly 70% of people in the country worked in farming and agriculture. But as you see here in this chart, that number decreased to less than 5% at the turn of the millennium in 2000. What happened? The tech got good. Farmers were able to harness new innovations to force multiply what one farmer could do, so fewer farmers were required. And that trend continued up to present day. Even this guy on his tractor is set to lose his job when self-driving tractors get fully rolled out. And so how to handle exponentials? Number one, I would say expect change, right? This is a paradigm shift. We can try to hold on to the past, or as was said earlier, we can ride the wave. Number two, in addition to the decrease in workers in the farming and agriculture industry, we see an inverse relationship to the number of humans living in cities in America. Back in 1840, it was only 10% who lived in urban areas. And by the end of 2000, we were up to over 80%. And this number is expected to keep rising. What happened in this transitionary period, this orange bar, is something we call the Second Industrial Revolution, right? From 1870 to 1914, we saw breakthroughs in technology and society that sustained by this movement. Right at the intersection here, directly as they overlap, in 1896 is the Ford quadricycle, right? The precursor to the Model T. New behaviors in human beings brought about new behaviors in innovation. But it's not just Ford. We see in 1903, the Wright brothers take their inaugural flight. And in 1913, stainless steel comes about, changing the game for manufacturing and for new building. And it's not just tech, it's also society. In 1896, we see the first cinemas as more people are congregating in cities. In 1904, we see St. Louis's World Fair, bringing together the best minds in innovation and culture to talk about the new changes that are happening. This is a small version of that. And lastly, in 1913, we see DC has the March for Women's Suffrage. Social change is born out of technical innovation. And so what I would say is embrace the new. It's scary. There's a lot of change happening technologically, socially, but historically, every time we innovate, we elevate. One last chart that I'll put before you guys is adding 3 more data points. This blue increase is the life expectancy in years. This purple increase is the number of patents granted annually, and the green increase is the real GDP per capita that increases. Were farming and agriculture jobs displaced in this time? Yes. Was the quality of life across the board largely improved? Yes. So I want you guys to understand machinists, textiles, retail, sales, office clerks, railroads. These were industries that couldn't have been fathomed to be driving in before the second industrial revolution. And afterwards, it was obvious. It was a foregone conclusion that these industries would expand. So what I would say is, while we see technology encroach on our existing jobs, we can't see the future jobs that are yet to be created, the future opportunities that will come forward from emerging technologies, but they are as real as these jobs on the screen. This is one of my favorite quotes for what I do for work. Henry Ford. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. We don't always have a good grid on what we want, but the pioneering innovators can offer something that may or may not stick. And in this case, most of us drove here, those of us who didn't take the metro, and we owe it to Henry Ford as an early innovator. So what I would say for number 3 is to reap and sow. It might look like new crops. It might be an unfamiliar harvest, but I am suspecting it will be larger fields. So let's take us back to where we started. What you are saying is more important than how it is being delivered. We've seen technological tools that can completely change the way that your message is brought from your lips to their ears. And we need to harness these. We need to be where people are listening. But as I said up top, this is a world that needs a real message now more than ever. More tools to help the same necessary message. So thank you all for letting me share a bit about the future, and let's have a great rest of our session today.
I'm telling you to stay here. We have a little bit of time, maybe 5 minutes for some questions. Are there any questions? Did we have some? Take one in the room, and then Dana will bring you the mic. And then if there are any online, let's take at least one online. Thank you very much. Crystal, hand in the air.
Hi, thanks for really, thought-provoking presentation. One of my questions is we're thinking about health communications and public health and how we need to predict rather than react. And I was interested in one of your slides that talked about life expectancy. And while over time it has gone up, life expectancy now is going down significantly in Chicago. Black communities live 12 years less than the white people in the white communities. You know, we could go into all kinds of discussion with it. So how can we use tech, thinking ahead to help with that particular issue? How can we use tech to improve public health?
It's an excellent question. The first thing I would say is you, as the question asker, are the expert in the methods and the plans and the processes to make health care available, to deliver healthcare messages. These tools are mostly for the channel, right? What gets said, how we prioritize what gets said, how we address the underlying systemic issues for the discrepancy that you alluded to. I am not going to claim to be the expert on that in this room. You all are. And that's the message I think needs to be delivered broadly. Hopefully that answers your question.
I'll take one in the room. Go ahead, Ken, and then we'll go online.
Loved the talk. It was really good.
Thank you.
What was the first book to be printed on the printing press? What was the first message that Samuel F.B. Morse delivered on the telegraph?
I believe the first book was the Gutenberg Bible.
That's right.
And I believe the first message from Samuel Morse was, hey, come in here. I have to show you something.
What has God wrought?
Sorry?
What has God wrought?
What has God wrought?
What I'm saying is that I would like to see a consideration of faith and its role in all of this, because a lot of what's going on in this country now and elsewhere around the world is related to faith. And if you are a student of history, you know that in America in the 1820s and 30s, there was a massive religious revival. And all of this suddenly dawned on me as you were speaking. Where is the place of faith in all this, if at all?
It's an excellent question. And as I shared at the top, I am a man of faith. I'm active in my church, and that's not true for everyone in this room. But for those who do practice their faith, I would say it's the same concepts. What is the message that you are hoping to share, whether it's about public health or whether it's about your God? And how can you leverage artificial intelligence? How can you leverage virtual reality and ambient experiences to deliver the best message that you can to those who are on those platforms?
Thank you, Mark. Y'all are asking him hard questions. All right, let's take a question online.
All right. Summarizing a conversation here, there are a bunch of positives that we've heard. What are the potential negative impacts? There's potential negative impacts on cognitive capabilities, environmental consequences, things like health misinformation, whether it perpetuates it or can it be used to address it? So if you could speak a bit more on the potential negatives.
Sure. I'm not one to shy away from the negatives in technology. I'm not going to stand in front of you and say it's all sunshine and rainbows. Let's speak quickly to the misinformation. As we have seen in recent years, the rise of misinformation on social media platforms is well documented, and the speed at which misinformation travels, I believe, is 7 times faster than truth. And so we have a real misinformation problem just by human beings sharing what is untrue. When you have generative AI tools that are able to spit out 100 prompts a minute and can post from a variety of different accounts with little accountability, it becomes very murky to see what is true. I think that needs to become part of the public health message, is not just what is true, but also how to know what is true. So I speak about blockchain as a digital watermark. There are also tools like a blue check mark next to your account, being able to authenticate and prove, hey, this is from a reputable source. Brand is going to be a huge part of communication moving forward. As for energy consumption and even cognitive decrease, these are both areas our team is watching super closely. I mean, the power race is on to fuel AI compute needs, right? We're reopening 3 Mile Island. We've seen new advances in geothermal technology being harnessed to power these GPUs needed to move AI forward. This has a cost. And those who would stand here and raise the banner to say, I care about our planet, need to be vocal and need to be in the rooms with the technology leaders who are making these decisions. Lastly, on cognitive thinking, right? I heard an analogy the other day that stuck with me. As we moved from farming to more city-oriented living, we lost a lot of our physical exercise. And so we created these things called gyms where you could go and get a pump and get fit. The same thing is happening right now with generative AI, right? I see my younger teammates who the first thing they think to do is go type their question into ChatGPT. And they're not straining the problem-solving muscles in their brain. And we see studies coming out now that that's actually resulting in atrophy, right? And so I believe, this is my hot take, we may see a renaissance in hobbyism as another way to strain our problem-solving brain. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's learning an instrument, maybe it's taking a new language, but we are going to find new ways to solve problems with our brains, kind of like how the gym solves problems with our bodies.
Great, thank you. I'm going to combine a couple of other points as well into one question. What advice would you offer to professionals, both in terms of building skill sets for using this technology in the future, as well as working as communicators with leaders, with other communicators, with others, about knowing when to use AI and when not to?
Great questions. My boss, who is Deloitte's chief futurist, just gave a keynote at South by Southwest earlier this year called "Breadth is the New Depth." And I would say in eras past, the separator for you versus your peers was to go as deep and narrow on one task as you could, to be the best programmer in a certain tech language, to be the best communicator through one modality. What we are seeing now is AI can do that. The key is not to be the best at Python. The key is to be really good at a lot of different things and to be able to make connections between one discipline and another.
Excellent. I think that's all we have time for. Perfect. Thank you. Another round of applause, please, for Mark Osis. Thank you. That was excellent. I have to say, one, I'm moving this water out of the way. I want smart contacts. So I want them to get on that really fast. I've seen my young adult children use Chat GPT in a way that I never imagined, like have full-on conversations. I think they're friends with Chat. And thank you so much for bringing that science fiction. Thank you for bringing Tony Stark to our meeting. I really appreciate that.